Good morning, everybody. Welcome to the Trimet Board of Directors meeting. We're waiting for one of our members to come, but we are going to start the public forum. Before that, though, I wanted to make a couple of announcements, and it's not going to cut in any way into the time allotted for our public forum this morning, but there's a couple new faces up here at the dais that you might be interested in, because Governor Brown has appointed Shelley Martin to represent District 3, which is in southwest Portland, parts of Beaverton, and the areas of Tigard and Tualatin. And the governor has also appointed Lori Irish Bauman to represent District 4, which is the east and southeast portion of Portland, to about 205. She fills the seat of outgoing board member Consuelo Zaragoza, who will be thanking in just a moment. So if I could, I'd like to maybe turn it over to the two new members to say hello and introduce themselves.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Lori Bauman. Honored to be here. I am a lawyer at the Ader Wind firm. I live in Southeast Portland. I have lived in Southeast Portland for over 25 years, and very honored and excited to work on the issues that Trimet cares about, and to help serve the community, and especially concerned and interested in the economic development aspects of Trimet's mission, and also service of enhancing the self-reliance of individuals with disabilities. Thank you.
Hi, and I'm Shelley Martin, and I'm happy to be here as well. One thing Lori didn't mention, we have a little fun fact about us. We both discovered through this process that we are parents of identical twin girls, and we have decided that if you can raise identical twins, then you can do just about anything. So I'm here to help represent the public. I come from Fred Meyer. I worked for Fred Meyer for 33 years in multiple capacities, starting pushing carts and paid my way. I work at the corporate office, labor relations specialist. I've been in HR, and I'm a retired accountant and did taxes, so I understand the balance between the community and the business and treating people right. I know that all of your interests are very important, and your voices are very important, and I'm here to listen and seek to understand. Thank you.
Well, welcome to both of you. We're glad that you're here, and we have a full board of directors again. It's nice when we're making decisions. So what I'd like to do now is ask former board member Consuelo Zaragoza, maybe she could come up here and sit at the table, or if you want to sit at the chair there for a moment. We need to embarrass you a little bit here. The board really wishes to celebrate and thank you for your contributions to Trimet and to the public. We've prepared a resolution to honor your service to the agency and to the community, and I'm going to take a moment to read that resolution, if you would allow me. So this is resolution number 15-05-26, which says, whereas the Trimet Metropolitan Transit District of Oregon, Trimet, and its board of directors wish to honor Consuelo Zaragoza for her service as District 4 representative and board representative on the Transit Equity and Access Advisory Committee, and whereas Ms. Zaragoza has been an active and esteemed member of the community, has been a transit champion through her advocacy for livable communities and underserved populations' access to public transportation. And whereas Ms. Zaragoza, as a highly regarded public health official, has helped guide and shape the agency through expertly communicating the importance of transit in the region, specifically for access to education, jobs, and community service. And whereas Ms. Zaragoza has been a longtime supporter of Trimet, channeled her passion and dedication for advocacy towards serving as a voice of the community and for non-native English-speaking speakers. And whereas Ms. Zaragoza is a great believer in equality, helped establish and expand Trimet's access transit fare programs, and whereas Ms. Zaragoza, through her these mitigation programs, has greatly helped low-income individuals access transit and has helped offset the 2012 fare increases, which was the largest in our agency's history. And whereas Ms. Zaragoza, during her tenure at Trimet, has helped guide the agency through challenging financial times to say the least, and has helped balance priorities through those difficult budget decisions. And whereas Ms. Zaragoza has left a permanent mark by making Trimet a more inclusive agency in all respects of our business, including making transit more accessible to communities of color and to low-income riders. Therefore, now be it resolved that the Trimet Board of Directors, its president, and its staff express their gratitude to Ms. Consuelo Zaragoza for her role as District 4 representative and secretary of the Trimet Board of Directors. Be it further resolved that a copy of this resolution be presented to Ms. Zaragoza as an expression of our respect and appreciation. And it's signed by me. And so before I present it to you, I'm going to ask for a motion to approve Resolution 15-05-26.
So moved.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. Any further discussion on this? Maybe we want to make a couple comments right now before we take action.
Consuelo, I want to thank you for your service. When I joined the board, I quickly learned that you were one of the folks that I could listen to and rely on, particularly as it dealt with low-income issues. I learned a lot from you, and I really appreciate your kind and gentle nature and approach, and I'm going to miss you a lot, so thank you so much.
Thank you.
Consuelo. I'm all took up. I second what he said. Director Prosser hit it spot on. I have great respect for the perspective you bring to the table. Gives me additional opportunities to take a look at things from different ways and have different approaches to things. And I greatly, greatly appreciate that. And greatly appreciate your contribution to the region and the state, for that matter, and the impact that you've had and will have. So you look so, as I said before, so relaxed and happy right now. Is that what it looks like when it's post-board?
I guess. Thank you. Thank you.
Oh, you can say something.
And you're going to finish, right?
Yes.
As president.
I'll go first if you like.
Well, it hasn't changed a bit here. I want to thank you, too. I want to echo what the other directors said, and also your sense of humor, which is sometimes up here, as you know, it's needed. So good luck to you, and good luck to you.
Thank you.
Stay in touch.
Absolutely.
I don't know whether our new commissioners, directors want to say anything, but you can if you'd like.
I will say that I did read your bio and when I was looking at the board, and it was very impressive. So we will do our best to fill your shoes proudly.
Thank you.
Likewise, I'm honored to follow in your footsteps and appreciate your service.
Thank you.
So before we take a vote on this resolution, Dr. Bethel just came in. We're just taking action on a resolution honoring Consuelo Zaragoza for her service. I don't know whether you have anything to say. You came in late. I won't want to put you on the spot here.
No, I do have something to say. You left me.
Sorry, sir.
Had a privilege to work with you, particularly around the things that impacted mostly our transit-dependent riders. I will miss your voice, but I'll not miss you in the city. Hopefully, somewhere, somehow, you'll be able to continue to help make a contribution to the transportation system, and the best of luck to you in everything.
Thank you, Dr. Bethel.
So I can't say a lot more, Consuelo. I want to thank you for your years of service on the Trimet Board and your commitment to public service in general. You're a champion in many, many ways. I will miss your calm demeanor and your smiling face next to me, telling me it's okay as we move forward. I will miss that a lot. We hope to see you around in various ways, because I know you're a great supporter of transit, and we will call on you on a regular basis. I want you to know that. But again, thank you very much for what you've done for the region and for people of color and equity in this area.
Thank you. Thank you.
So, all those in favor then of the motion to approve Resolution 15-05-26 signify by saying aye. Aye. Any nays or any abstentions? All right, this is approved unanimously. I'm going to hand this to you and take a moment to actually applaud you, but then give you a moment to also say anything you'd like.
Thank you. thank you, everyone, for all of your kind words. And I was reflecting on my time on Trimet and realized there was, we had a very contentious meeting. And it was when Director Schweitzer was still on the board. And we were guided or to come into a room, and I turned to her and I said, is it always like this? Because, you know, there was a lot of protest. And she says, oh, no, this is really exciting. It's been boring before. So I said, because I just thought that was how things happened all the time. But nevertheless, I feel that I've really learned a lot, and I feel very proud that I have been part of the wonderful Tillicum Bridge process. That is incredible. It's beautiful. It helps the region. It's in so many ways so positive, and I just feel really blessed that I have been part of that and many other pieces working with transit communities in terms of hearing their voice, working with all of you, listening to different points of view in terms of where we were going, and always, Neil always being very very calm and providing information that was very clear, and I really, really appreciate that. And the staff that have always supported anything that I needed. And thank you to you. Kelly has been very gracious in giving information. So again, thank you. I will definitely be listening in, and I hope to be part of the celebration for the Tillicum Bridge. And again, it has been my pleasure to serve on this board the last 4+ years, and I wish you all the best. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
No hay de qué.
All right. And you can stick around, by the way, if you'd like. All right, with that, we're going to move into the public forum. And for those of you who've not participated before, we provide 45 minutes at the beginning of our meeting, if necessary, to allow people to address the board on issues of concern or on any of the agenda items that are before the board today. We don't have to use the full 45 minutes. We have a sign-up sheet. People sign up, and they're called in the order of sign-up. And at the end of the 45 minutes, we'll stop. People are also invited to participate by providing written testimony to the board, which is included in our packets every meeting. I have 8 people, I believe, signed up who want to testify today. Because of that number, I think we'll just limit to our standard time, which is 3 minutes. If you have comments on any of the resolutions or ordinances, this is the time when we need to hear from you. And as I mentioned, written comments received online or through the mail will be made part of our permanent record. Just a note, the board has received substantial comments on the Honored Citizens Fair. We have a lot of things that have been sent to us and are included in our packets. In a moment, I'm going to invite you up, those who have been signed up, to come up 2 at a time. There's a timer. I think those of you who testified before see it in front of you. The light turns yellow, and you have 30 seconds to complete your comments, so hopefully you can wrap it up. When it turns red, I will ask you to close and wrap up your comments quickly if you're not already doing it. This is done to ensure equal time for each person and obviously maximize the number of people who can comment. So the public comments will be taken now, and I'm going to call up Keith Schultz, excuse me. And Bill, I never can remember your last name. Is it Warmer with ATU? There he is. And you'll correct me on what your last name is, right? Wemmer. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Keith, welcome.
Good morning, General Manager, Chair, members of the Trimet Board. I'm Keith Schultz. This month, I'm here not only as an OPAL and BRU member, but also as an Honored Citizen Fair user. This testimony is more personal. I am a disabled person who relies on Social Security to live on. We don't get enough to live on, but we get enough to exist. We do get a cost of living increase tied to the inflation rate. There was a time a few years ago when we got no COLA. All other expenses go up, including transit. But a 25% increase? When the figures show it will bring in less than 0.1% of what your budget is. The only reason for this increase is to simplify the fare structure, when it will affect over 60% of the users of the Honored Citizen Fare. Could you sit back and do nothing if someone told you that an important expense was going up by 25%? My rent is increased by over $100 per month. Food prices are going up. Utilities are going up. Please take this into your thoughts before you vote on this. Thank you.
Come on, Bill. Nice to see you.
I've been a Trimet member as a union officer for 9 years on the executive board of ATU 757. I'm starting my 16th year as president of ATU retired member chapter. And in all these years that I've been affiliated with Trimet and the public, this has been the most down part of my employment past history with Trimet. It always seems that they always have money for building new light rail projects, talking about new BRT systems, when they don't have enough money to operate the systems they have. Where is your common sense? Anybody with a brain would stop and think that before you operate something new, you have enough money to operate what you currently have. I'm sorry, but this just does not seem to be in the public's best interest. And I think you ought to go back and revisit some of these issues that you're being addressed today. Also, it might be a good idea for all of you board members and the management of Trimet to get out and actually ride and use the system on a regular basis. That way you would know what you are dealing with and how you would respond to the public. Once they actually know, and you know and understand the system, you may be better able to administer it. I'm sorry, but after almost 45 years as a dues-paying member of a union and being an employee of Trimet for 31.5 years before I retired, I think it would behoove you people to get out and actually enjoy and know your system. Thank you.
Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. Thank you, Bill. All right, the next two, I have Arnold Penich and William, I can't read your last name. Is it Gale? Want to talk about FCC? What you'll go introduce yourself when you get, okay, thank you. Good morning. Arnold.
Good morning. I'm Arnold Penich. I live in Hillsdale, and I welcome my new representative to the Board of Directors. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, and Mr. General Manager, I first want to thank you for inviting me to ride the Portland-Milwaukee Light Rail new train, which was a wonderful experience. We arrived out there in 17 minutes and the same coming back. And particularly since I'm on the CAT committee of Trimet, Committee for Accessible Transportation, the care that was taken with myself and other members to make sure that we got on and off in the vehicle and onto the platform and so forth. But as I was ushered out and given that courtesy, I was struck by the fact that when the train opens, there won't be all of these people making a lot of courtesies for us. And I would ask you to ride the vehicle when it starts and when it opens, and particularly look at the access issues. Access for blind people as far as wayfinding, access for the elderly like myself who take a little extra time to get on and off the vehicles, and access for those people with disabilities. And see if you can do some touring around and really get a feel for what it would be like to roll around in a wheelchair in some of the stops, and what are the connections between the buses and the trains, and what are the connections with the sidewalks, and so forth and so on. So I ask you to pay attention to that. Not that you're going to change anything on the alignment, but just the way in which people are accommodated will be very useful for us, because at 10 o'clock at night, somebody in a wheelchair in some of these stations may have considerable difficulty. I'm also here to ask again for a lot more connection with the schools. Training our young people to ride the new light rail along the alignment. I have advocated before, I'll advocate today, that you make an arrangement with the Milwaukee High School. We put a station in front of the high school, and what are we going to do about giving them certain accommodations for fares, for scheduling, and making sure that we train our young people so that they can ride the light rail and also the new bus accommodations that are coming with the Portland-Milwaukee light rail. Lastly, the St. Mary's School downtown is the same bus that I ride. And my buses that go by St. Mary's School pick up those girls. And they have an arrangement with Trimet, and they know what to do on the bus, and they know how to act. And I think we can train our people, both public school and private and parochial schools, to be really good transit riders. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Arnold. I just want to say thank you. If you've seen some things on the new light rail system that need to be improved, I hope you'll have an opportunity to talk with some of the staff. I think the project director for the project is here. We're always looking for ways to improve access, and that's always very important.
And I think those of us on the CAT committee would offer to go with them to do testing.
Why don't we ask the staff to follow up with you on that, because that's very important.
Thank you.
And I do want to also state the budget we're going to be adopting later, hopefully later today, continues the board's guidance to provide an opportunity for all school districts in the region to participate, just like the Portland Public School Districts do with the Student Pass program, with some sharing between the school districts and Trimet and local governments to actually make that happen. And we'd like to see other school districts take advantage of that. And I think we're actually starting to have some interest from others. So stay tuned on that one.
Thank you very much,
right.
Chairman.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is William Zell. May I have a moment of your time? My testimony has been submitted. It is within your packets. It's about the amount of couple of simple questions to go and ask yourselves before switching over to the e-fare plan. How many vehicles are within active within the Trimet fleet that is active in a day? Do include paratransit in the account along with right rail cars counting as one? The next question is, what is the voltage used to transmit data on the vehicles? Should Trimet consider upgrading the voltage in the future, or seek new licenses for voltage from the FCC for encryption purposes? By not upgrading the system, it might interfere with other digital devices. If Trimet's were to go and switch today over to the e-fare plan, Trimet would be over the voltage for transmission data. Because per each vehicle, that would face a $500,000 fine. I'm just asking you to go and see if you can go and get new licenses before the switch over to the e-fare plan.
Thank you. I'm not familiar of the issues. I think you're above our pay grade in terms of the discussion of these technical issues, but hopefully you can. Yeah.
With the specific answers.
Great. Thank you for coming today. I appreciate it. All right. So the next two I have are Jared Franz with Opal and John Charles with the Cascade Policy Institute. Good morning, Jared.
Good morning. I'll wait for John.
Please proceed.
Morning. My name is Jared Franz. I'm the policy director at Opal Environmental Justice Oregon. I'm transit dependent, and I really wish that I wasn't here today. That's not personal against anyone on the board. You all know how much I love coming, and it's definitely good to see a full Trimet board for the first time in 2 years. The reason that I wish that I wasn't here was because I was here last month asking the agency to table a decision on an unnecessary, immoral, and illegal fare increase. And I have to come back again this month to talk about that same issue rather than talking to local, regional, and state decision makers about transportation funding in the region. You know, every Oregonian should be ashamed of the fact that Oregon ranks 47th in the nation on spending for transit operations. We have common cause. Trimet and Opal should be working together to address these issues. But I'm increasingly wondering if, despite the fact that we have common cause, do we share common values? Because an agency that has a genuine commitment to equity would not still be considering an unnecessary, immoral, and illegal fare increase. Now, when I was here last month, I talked about why this is an unnecessary increase. I'm sure the board and staff know that if Trimet changed nothing in its budget, except forgoes the honored citizen fare increase, it would still have $132 million of unrestricted cash in its bank account at the end of the year, which is about $25 million more than board policy on the issue. It's the fact that this increase is unnecessary contributes to its assessment as an immoral increase. We talk a lot about the impacts of fare increases on riders. Trimet has said over and over that it takes fare increases seriously and it knows these impacts are harmful to riders and only passes fare increases as an act of last resort. That's not the case here. What we're talking about is the maximum fare increase allowed by federal law on the poorest and most vulnerable riders in the system at a time when the agency is experiencing its greatest degree of financial security in years. So finally, let's talk about whether this is illegal or not. You've seen the Title VI analysis. You know that the Title VI analysis of this fare increase shows a clear and dramatic disparate impact on low-income riders. In fact, the Title VI subcommittee of TEAC, Trimet's own Transit Equity Access and Advisory Committee, voted unanimously against this proposal in consideration of the Title VI report. Curiously, the full committee of TEAC wasn't given the opportunity to vote on the proposal, but the subcommittee did take action. Members of TEAC recognize that while there's no necessity for this increase, it means that because there's a disparate impact, the agency must avoid or mitigate the impacts of this proposal. But the mitigation that's being proposed is sham mitigation. The Access Transit is too small of a program to reach impacted people. It's too onerous to administrate, particularly for food banks that are being required to collect and report data that federal law actually prevents them from collecting, such as means testing for the provision of service. And there's insufficient data to show that this targeted mitigation will actually reach the people most impacted. And the money being dedicated to increased service is very, very little. Very little service will result as a result from it. All of the service proposals that are in the budget can otherwise be afforded without this increase. And again, there's insufficient data or transparency about these decision makings to ensure that this targeted mitigation has an effect. Now, we're reasonable people at Opal and BRU. We're capable of negotiating. We had success negotiating the extension of the transfer times, and we're willing to continue this dialogue. But what we're not willing to do is compromise or negotiate away the civil rights of riders. Thank you.
Thank you, Jared. Mr. Charles, nice to see you this morning.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. My name is John Charles, President of Cascade Policy Institute. I'm here today to talk about Resolution 15-05-24, proposed streetcar operating agreement. I am going to reference page 2 of it, this little chart, if you want to take a look at it. My question basically will be, when you get to this agenda item, is kind of why are you doing it? Actually, why is Trimet even involved in the streetcar, aside from it's a legacy project? Streetcar only has 1 car per train, so it's obviously not high-capacity transit. It only comes 3 or 4 times an hour, so it's not high-frequency transit. It only goes about 5, 6, 7, 8 miles per hour, depending on where you are. So it's obviously not high-speed transit. It barely qualifies as transit. If it was transit, you'd be running it all over the place. You're not. It's a City of Portland project for whatever reason. So when you look at the chart and the estimated numbers for FY 16, 17, and 18, you can see that when you net out the meager amount of fares, the fare box recovery ratio is quite tiny, which means that the actual users voting with their dollars every day consider this service almost worthless. Well, if it's almost worthless, then why are we running it? Which raises the, and they're proposing to go to a $2 fare. Well, that's fine, but your fare is $2.50, and so why is the streetcar only $2? The city says that the fare box recovery for the aerial tram, which is part of the transit system, is 100%. The users pay 100% of the operating cost. It's $4 to board. I support that. I would like to see actual users pay most or all of the cost. So this raises all these kind of questions about why you have, and for the broader purposes, from Trimet, what is your goal for fare box recovery? I've been coming here for a long time. I'm not aware that you have any internal institutional goal for what users should pay. And when you don't have a goal, that really affects your operating costs, and especially your labor negotiations. Because when your employees negotiate and they ask for a lot, and they know that no matter what they ask for, it really has no direct connection to what you have to charge, it puts pressure to go up. If they knew that, well, you have an internal goal of recovering, say, 40, 50, or 60% of service costs from actual users, well, then every time you affect something in your expense category, that would have a direct connection with what you have to raise. And you all know in your private life, you can ask for lots of things in the market, but if the market says you're not worth that, you don't get it. So I think I know that today you're not prepared to discuss all of that. I'd suggest when you get to this item, instead of a 3-year deal, you adopt something much narrower, 4 months, 6 months, and that you then schedule in some future time a work session to discuss basically why Trimet is stuck to this tar baby of a streetcar, of how long are you going to be part of it, what is an appropriate fare box recovery ratio for all of your service, and if you don't have one, maybe you should have one, and really it's a chance to, at a policy level, and you're a policy board, talk about these things so that these numbers begin to take on more sense, because without a broader context, they're just numbers and you vote yes. And I suggest that you not vote yes for 3 years. You vote yes, if you're going to vote yes, for a much shorter period and revisit this in a thoughtful way sometime soon. Thank you.
Thank you, John. Appreciate your comments. All right. I think we have one more addition, okay? So I've got 2 people I'm going to call up. So we have Lou Church with Transit Riders Union and Chris Walker with our CAT committee. Good morning.
Thought I would share a thought I had about your West service. Typically it runs in the morning and evening for commuters and doesn't run on holidays. I had the thought of, because from what I understand, I haven't actually ridden, that's one train I haven't ridden yet, but from what I understand, it has conductors and helps people on and off and all that. But I was thinking, if you ran it on some holidays and stuff, it might be a fun trip. If there's some fun things, maybe you could partner with Wilsonville and come out with a guide of fun things to do for the summer, or just generally in Wilsonville, so that families could teach their kids about transit. It's a teaching tool that you could have for people with kids and families. Just something that people could do for fun and teachable. So that was just my thought. Every time I see that on holidays, I think kind of that way, and I'm like, oh, that might be a learning opportunity. So.
All right. Good suggestion, Chris. Thank you.
I had a process question. I'm not sure it's a Neil question or a Bruce question, but it looks like for public comments for this meeting, and my question is whether this has been true in the past, on specific resolutions like the honored citizen fare increase, all the comments are picked during the morning to start with, whereas the last meeting some of us came to, we got to talk about the honored citizen fare increase and when it was being considered. Is that different just this one time?
So we actually had the required public hearing last week for the ordinance. So this is additional opportunities for folks to provide comments to us in addition to what was actually the formal process. So actually we're going above and beyond to provide opportunities.
Sure, I think in the past, the Trimet board, having been at 32 board meetings, not with the present board, usually had, and you may be correct, usually had comments when something was being considered. Do we have an estimate roughly, and you can take this out of my time if you want, when the vote might happen? Do we think 1 o'clock, 3 o'clock on honored citizen resolution?
We're going to get to is right after we get through the regular agenda, and it's probably going to be before noon today, I would guess.
Okay, well, I was told it would be a long meeting, so that's fine. So can you, Kelly, I kind of interrupted what I was talking about last time. Can you tell me orally so I can hear when 30 seconds are? Is that all right?
When you get to 30 seconds.
Yeah, is that okay? Okay, thank you. I'm Lou, L-E-W, Progressive Student Union at Portland State, Transit Riders Union, the elected treasurer of Transit Riders Union. I'm glad to see there's some new board members. I think they weren't here last time. I think Joe was on a trip last time with IBEW. Yeah, that's what I heard. Our alliance has gotten different organizations to oppose the honored citizen fare increase. One of those is Portland Jobs of Justice, which is a coalition of 60 unions, including IBEW, which was at that meeting that unanimously.
You speak on that, and we'll talk after this.
Well, what were you going to say?
We'll talk later.
What were you going to say?
You got some erroneous information.
What's the specific?
Why don't we finish your make your testimony?
Well, you've gotten some information, and I think we get to ask the board questions, and you kind of interrupted what I was going to say. So if you'd like to speak, Joe, go ahead.
I'll recuse myself.
I'll recuse myself.
Oh, okay. Well, that concludes at least the people who've signed up for the public forum this morning. Is there anybody in the audience that wishes to speak that did not have an opportunity to sign up?
Well, we signed up, but we signed up on the wrong day. I signed up right below Keith's name.
Okay, well, why don't you both come up and acknowledge your, identify yourselves, and we'll make you part of the public forum here. But I don't have your names.
There's 3 of us.
Are you 3 together?
No, there's just 3 folks who signed up.
Well, come on up.
I'm not quite sure what you mean by together, but.
I think you've done it. So whoever would like to start, please introduce yourself.
All right. My name's Allison. I have a lot of friends who are honored citizens and family members. And I've read your proposed budget for 2016, as well as the equity analysis. And so as you know, the analysis found, regarding the honored citizen fare increase, the analysis found that it will disproportionately affect people who live on low incomes. The logic in the analysis is that you've increased adult fares twice since 2010. Therefore, the increase would still fall under the FTA guidelines of the HC fare being half that of an adult fare. So in a word, it's because you can, which to me sounds like a very business-oriented thing to do rather than a public service-oriented thing to do. And I think you'd be setting an example for other transit agencies reminding folks that you're a public service and not a corporation or a business. As Jared mentioned, if you look at the projected budget for 2016, you're expected to have $25 million above what you are required to have by your own policy in your ending fund balance. And the mitigation options proposed in the equity analysis I found were really weak. The first option was to spend money on outreach so that honored citizens know that weekly, 2-week, and monthly passes are available to them, because these will still be increased, but at a lesser rate than a single fare. This seems to me like it would be an expensive program, and also it assumes that honored citizens are ignorant of the services available to them. The second option builds on your current Access Transit program by increasing the budget, directing funds to honored citizens, increasing the discount participating agencies receive on HC fares, and adding HC fares to those set aside for short-term fare relief. These options place the burden on nonprofit organizations who are already stretched for funds, and it places the burden on honored citizens to seek their own fare relief. Seems to me like it would be less administratively costly to just leave the fares as they are, considering you are in no financially problematic situation looking at the budget. So it seems to me like it would just be more efficient to just leave the fare as it is. Especially because the paltry revenue generated from the honored citizen fare increase pales in comparison both to your budget without it, and in comparison to the detriment that honored citizens, 63% of whom live on low incomes, will feel when their transportation lifeline becomes less and less affordable. So public transportation is a public service, not a business. Trimet would send a message to other transportation authorities reminding them of that fact. If the agency were to say, yes, we would still be complying with the FTA guidelines, but we don't need the extra revenue, and we care about our honored citizens enough to just keep them low. That would be the correct behavior of a public service agency. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Michelle Zellers. I'm a member of Bus Riders Unite, and I'm a transit-dependent person. I hope that when I'm a little bit older, when transit is even more essential to me, that I'll be able to afford it. And I hope that I won't be priced out of my community, and that whoever's in power will truly be doing everything they can to make the city livable for older and disabled people. Portland promotes itself as a livable city, and these claims are all over Trimet's website. Our transit organization is not Nike or Intel. It's meant to serve the people of Portland. So I hope when Trimet talks about livability that it's more than a marketing ploy. So please vote against the fare increase for older and disabled people.
Good morning.
Hello to all of you. Good morning. I didn't get to say hi to all of you this morning. Welcome to our new board members. Hooray for women. Have faith in you. My name is Teresa Keishi Soto. Most of you know me. I am transit dependent, and I'm here to ask that you not raise the honored citizens fares. You know that 63% of honored citizens are living in poverty. This is a Trimet statistic. You also know that mobility is a crucial factor to the survival of all of us as we age, and that includes some of you. We're there already, and you know what I mean. Your vote will impact the ability of honored citizens to get their needs met on their own, which is very important as we age. We need to stay as independent as possible. Mitigation programs that you say are a remedy for those needing help to buy tickets and passes will only burden nonprofit agencies who will not be able to assist everyone. Sending honored citizens to such programs adds a layer of bureaucracy to their lives and forces them to go to another agency, one more agency. When you think of people who are living in poverty, it's a constant going to agency, filling out forms, asking. You have an opportunity to do what is humane by not approving the proposal to raise the honored citizen fares. To raise the fares simply to accommodate the electronic fare system is unnecessary and extremely cruel. Do not back away from the responsibility that you as board members have to honored citizens who depend on Trimet. You know that honored citizens are coping with higher prices for everything. I'm going to give myself an example. I just got priced out of my apartment. I've been in that apartment since 2003. I wish you could see my garden. So now I'm having to move. You know me because I have come before you for several years. Thanks to those times that I have attended meetings, I have learned a lot about what you have to do, about how Trimet operates, and about your responsibilities as a board. I am asking that you continue to work the way you are going, the way you're doing, and that you take into account the needs and concerns of people who are transit dependent. For those of you who are new to the board, ride your buses for at least a month. There are wonderful things happening at Trimet. However, there are things that still need to be taken care of. In the case of honored citizens, I'm asking that you show compassion, empathy, and respect for a population that needs your support. Don't throw honored citizens under the bus. You will be there soon if you're not there already. Keep the fares the same. Thank you. And like I always say, I believe in you. I think that you can be the very best. And I know that it can be done. Muchas gracias.
Thank you for your comments. Appreciate it. Thank you all for coming. All right, so that, I believe, is the end of the public forum. Is there anybody else who we've missed this morning? All right, then I'm going to close the public forum, and I'm going to call to order the regular business meeting for the Tri-County Metropolitan Transportation District of Oregon, Trimet Board of Directors for May 27th, 2015. So let's go right into board reports. The first on there is the Committee on Accessible Transportation, as we call it, the CAT Committee. Dr. Bethel, do you have a report this morning?
Good morning, Mr. President. Good morning to all the board members. Welcome to our 2 new board members as well. You have a report already in your packet that talks about CAT dated May 21st, 2014. Just let me highlight a couple of the highlights. Number 1, General Manager, I think by now you have received the nominations for those who have been nominated by CAT and for their approval. There was an issue that came up about the lifts being able to use the Tillicum Crossing Bridge, hoping that that would make their commutes much faster. That issue has been resolved as far as it goes. We've gotten the information back that it's not going to be feasible to do that. The other piece that I want to bring up that was not in the highlights that was mentioned in a meeting is that when there is the Operator of the Year award that's given for both bus drivers as well as mini run drivers, they will also create a category that honors lift operators as well. That's it for the report for this time. If there are any questions, we will be glad to entertain those.
Good recommendation. Any questions from the board? Thank you, Dr. Bethel. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
I also have on the agenda the Transit Equity Advisory Committee, TAC, which is usually Consuelo Zaragoza. Does staff have a report for us on today?
I'd ask Mr. Bell to come up
All right.
and give a very quick report if you could.
Good morning, board. For the record, John Bell, Director of Diversity and Transit Equity. We did have a meeting last Thursday, and our great thanks goes to former Director Zaragoza for her great service on the Transit Equity Advisory Committee since its inception. We had a robust conversation about the service enhancement plans. We focused on the e-service enhancement plan. Many of the committee members were very thrilled to see the initial visions and all of the new additional north to south lines that would commence following future budget advancement. We also held a number of discussions about e-fare, looking at the Title VI, potential Title VI implications and the community engagement elements of that. So much more to come, very great discussion, and we look forward to meeting next month, third Thursday of every month. Thank you.
Any questions for Janelle? All right, thank you very much. Appreciate it. Let's move on then to the Metro Policy Advisory Committee, MPAC. Director Prosser.
And I do not have a report on MPAC this month.
So on the Finance and Audit Committee?
Yeah, the Finance and Audit Committee met this morning, and we had a briefing by our Chief Financial Officer, Dee Brookshire, budget follow-up and some of the changes that will be occurring in the budget as we adopt it. She'll be going through that as part of her presentation on the budget, so don't need to go into that in great detail. Dan Blocker talked to us about savings from the Portland-Milwaukee light rail line. This is something that, as the project winds down, we are projecting there will be savings there. but there are some complexities how that's calculated in its interaction with the federal funding formula, interest rates on bonds, that types of thing. So we're not going to have a firm handle on the exact number of our amount of savings until we receive our final payment from the feds, which under the full funding grant agreement is not scheduled until 2019. So it's we have been getting some questions from some of our local partners who, under the terms of their agreement with Trimet, are due a share of the savings, and we're trying to keep them apprised as we go forward, but we won't have a final answer for them until 2019. And finally, we got an update on the payroll tax and some discussions that the general manager and Bernie Bottomley have been having with some of our partners. So, and that's it. If there are any questions.
Questions? No, I don't see any. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I guess.
Well, there we go.
What are the projected savings roughly? On the orange line?
Yeah, we're at kind of in the 40 to $50 million range at this point. Again, because of the interaction on the federal funding formula, it's hard to tie that down. So I think a range is a better number to use.
Okay, thanks.
Mm-hmm. Good question. All right, well, that concludes the board reports. Let's go on to the general manager's report. Mr. General Manager, I'll turn it over to you.
Mr. Board President, members of the board, good morning, and in particular, welcome to our new members. We're very pleased to have a full board and to have you with us, so again, welcome. I did want to just start with sharing with you a little presentation that we had a couple weeks ago with our Operator of the Year ceremony, where we actually honor our operators, as Board Member Bethel noted. We had a presentation from the Troutdale Police Department. And it reminds us of, I think, of some of the service that Trimet actually provides that isn't in our normal daily routine. But you might recall a little over a year ago, our buses provide an invaluable service, one that was really heart-wrenching for us, as we shuttled Reynolds High School students from their campus to a local spot where they could meet with their parents. And as a result of that service, I think we made some lifelong friends. But it is the kind of service that we do for first responders on a very regular basis around the region, whether it be fires or floods or police emergencies. We dispatch buses either as warming buses, places for neighbors and community members to be safe and out of the way of potential action, or in actually providing the transportation service that is really critically needed. So we were presented this great plaque from the Troutdale Police Department. We were presented in a very heartfelt and touching ceremony by 3 students at Reynolds High School. At that ceremony, it was particularly great because so many of our frontline employees, our operators who actually provide the service, was there actually as this was being presented to us. And it's something when you see big burly police officers start to break down and nearly tear up related to the kinds of actions that took place on that very tragic day at Troutdale High School. So I would like to pass this around and let you see that. And the other piece of this was actually a coin that was minted in appreciation by the students of Reynolds High School. So I will pass that around. And we'll very proudly show this in our display case at Trimet. It's just a reminder of some of the great services that our agency does provide. So with that, let me sort of get into the more mundane measures. We wanted to report on our April ridership. It was a very robust number of 332,000 average weekday riders. That is on the higher side of our ridership, but believe it or not, it was tamped down just a little bit from where we were a year before. And I do think that we're seeing some reflection of the lower gas prices, and pretty dramatically lower from a year ago in all of those numbers. We actually saw some increases in weekend ridership, which is actually a very healthy thing related to the overall system growth. And I would just say for the month of April, we carried over 2 million trips on Bus, Max, and West. So again, I think a very successful month, but again, gas prices are a big factor, but just just tamping down very slightly the ridership from last year. We've also included in your packet our quarterly performance report, and I want to point out both some good and bad out of this. But the good is that we continue to see improvements in meeting our preventive maintenance schedules for both bus and rail, and indeed we see them at really high levels over the last quarter, and that's been very good. And we've seen corresponding improvement with that in the miles reported between a failure of either a bus or a rail vehicle. So as our reliability goes up related to the vehicles themselves, our overall service to our customers improves again. One thing that I did also want to note that we made a significant gain on time performance on the bus side. That's about a 4% gain. And those numbers don't usually move that dramatically, so we'll continue to watch this. But that is the sum total of our on-time performance for our bus system over the quarter. So again, a 4% gain is actually quite a good improvement in performance, and we're going to continue to look at that and watch that. I think a lot of this is due to the added investment the board has improved in the past related to schedules. Recall that every time congestion begins to affect a bus travel time, we need to add time to the runs. We frankly weren't able to do that to the extent we needed to during the Great Recession, but we've been making up for that over the last few years, and that, I think, has seen one of the reasons for that improvement. We've also seen improvements in the reduction in bus and rail collisions compared to first quarter. That's a very good sign to see as well. And I would also just note that we have a series of continuous improvement teams involving our frontline employees continuing to work on rail reliability, rail on-time performance, and we're beginning to see some good results from that. Some of those aren't reflected in the statistics yet, but I do see some really active efforts to really improve our performance for our customers. And so my thanks to everybody who's involved with all that. I'd also just want to note that we have sort of double duty over the next few months as we begin to ramp up the training for the Orange Line opening, which is, I think it's 108 days away or something very close to that. And while we're doing that, we're, of course, trying to keep the rest of the system running very well, too. So there is a certain double duty that goes on for the period of time. We have staffed up, obviously, for the Orange Line over a period of time, but there's still sort of extra effort on everybody's part as we get familiar with the new alignment. I'd also note that as we sort of hit a major milestone that in June, the project actually formally turns over the project to operations, which is a major milestone. The project will continue to do punch list items and cleanup items and repair items and fine-tuning items, but the operations staff will actually begin to own the alignment here by the time we meet next. I'd also just wanted to remind you that beginning Sunday, June 7th, we start our summer service, and with that will come restoring a frequent service for weekend max. That, you might recall, is a $1.1 million investment. It will add 135 max trips on our various lines for Saturday and Sunday. It actually is the first time we've been able to run full frequent service levels on the Green Line. Since we opened that during the recession, we opened at a tamped down schedule and are actually restoring that to the full 15-minute frequencies that we were originally intending. And I'd also note that with this restoration of frequent weekend service means that max levels are greater than actually at the pre-recession levels. So we've hit that milestone. And that's an important one for us as well. I'd also just wanted to note that in your packet, you'll have a full safety report from Harry, but is an insert that we'll be including in community newspapers delivered to about 150,000 residences around the region. It's both in English and in Spanish, and it is our standard summer safety message, which is be safe around trains and buses. This is an attempt to sort of remind everybody of the importance of safe activity around our system. It's an important message. We do this every year. We do see generally a little more rambunctious activities as school lets out and young people use the system as we want them to access the sites of the region. But again, just to note that that will be going out to households in the very near future. I'd also just wanted to follow up to one of the items that Mr. Panich noted, which is that we are actually beginning, today, a series of school-related rides with the on the Orange Line. This is actually sponsored by us by Dornbecker Children's Hospital Tom Sargent Safety Center. And the school safety rides are an opportunity to directly reach students who are in the vicinity of the Orange Line and live near the new Max Orange Line. And they'll be on a preview ride, be given information about how to be safe around the Max Line. This will be continuing again. We're trying to do a sort of big volley of this before school lets out here in early June. So there's a number of those rides that will be scheduled here in the near term. As I was at a recent coffee shop this morning, I saw 2 trains heading for the Orange Line, so we're going to be filling them with students here today. I'd also just wanted to note that we also now have and are fully operational with the quiet zones. These are Federal Rail Administration authorized zones where the freight trains don't need to sound their horns when they come to a crossing because of the extra added safety devices that we've added along the Orange Line. And so those quiet zones will be in place in Southeast Portland, and that's been operating for a while now, and just this last few weeks was actually put in place in the central Milwaukee area as well. So I think that will be a great improvement in community livability, not even related to transit, but was, again, one of the things we could do when we were in the neighborhood with our own Orange Line construction. So with that, I'd be happy to move on to the rest of the reports, but also happy to answer any questions that
board members.
Yeah, Neil, or maybe Dan, how's the progress going on the little construction project over there by the Rose Garden?
So we are underway right now with
Yeah,
a tenant improvement project, and that will actually allow our signals and some of our maintenance away staff to move from Gresham at Ruby Junction to the central city area so that they can be dispatched much more quickly to, frankly, the areas of our system that have the most complicated signal systems and, frankly, the most problems. So the idea was to bring them closer. And so that work is underway, and I believe it will be completed this fall with move-in, again, I think right after the Orange Line opening.
So it's on schedule?
On schedule, absolutely.
Thanks.
Yep.
I did have one question. First, I want to comment. Thank you very much for continuing to look at some important performance measures and giving us reports on a regular basis. Everything looks like it's trending the right way, except the attendance by our operations and maintenance folks. It looks like it's gone down the last 3 quarters. Is that an indication of weather and flu, or is something happening there we need to know about?
I don't believe there's anything systemic that is causing that. I think the fluctuations are still within 1% overall. Sometimes get exaggerated based on the scale that we display that on because we watch at it very closely. I do know that Shelley and her team, she can certainly give you more of an update, watch this very closely and have all of the absences categorized by FEMLA versus contract leave versus the various workers' comp leaves, and actually look at each of those components in great detail and track that very thoroughly. So that, again, as you know, the absence has a great effect on our budget and the sizing of what we call our extra board, our insurance, so we can make sure every bus gets out on time. So it is an important factor, and we're watching it.
Okay, thank you. All right. Why don't we move on then to Alan on the SAP, which is for those new board members, the Service Enhancement Plans.
you, Mr. Board President and board members. Bringing my whole crew up here. And we're just going to talk to you briefly about our service enhancement plans. This is our annual update to you. As you know, we've done a couple of updates to you already, so this is keeping you up to speed on how we're progressing. And I'm happy to say a very positive progression for this year. So I'm going to just give you a little bit of overview, and then I'm going to ask each of my leads to talk about their particular area. As you remember, with the vision, we're trying to develop a vision for the future of transit together with the stakeholders, the riders, the neighborhoods, the businesses in each of 5 areas within the Trimet district. And we took those each a little bit out of sync so that we didn't have to do all 5 at once, because we wouldn't be able to pay enough attention to all of them at once. And we've started off with the west side, and that vision has actually been completed, but the others are in various stages of development. And with me, I have Tom Mills, who's leading the west side and southwest, Vanessa Visar, who is leading the east side and southeast, and Kate Lyman, who is leading the North Central. And as I said, each of them will take a minute or two to talk about their particular area to give you a sense of what we're hearing and how we're thinking about addressing that just a bit. To put this in context, each year with our annual service plan, when we have to make decisions about where the investment should go into service that are part of the budget decision, we have to think about one, the basic maintenance of the system, making sure that we are keeping up with the true overloads of capacity. Where the buses are just too full for people to continue riding, we need to add service. Where the traffic is getting so bad that we have to add more buses just to stay on current schedule, we have to continue to do that. We also each year take the advantage to look at potential for optimizing, and with this coming year, we are planning to do the last of the restoration of the cuts that had to be made during the Great Recession. So this service enhancement plan is really focusing on the long-term potential for increase, and this is all about developing those visions in partnership with the businesses, the neighborhoods, the stakeholders throughout the region to be able to have that template for each year so that we can make incremental improvements towards those visions. I mentioned that each one is at a little bit of a different place, and you can see west side ahead, southwest coming towards closure soon, east side and north, and then southeast. Because we did so much work with the orange line, we decided to go with southeast last so that we could finish up that vision for the long run beyond the orange line opening. With that, I'm going to hand it over to Tom to talk just a little bit about some of our methods and then specifically about west side and southwest.
Thank you. Again, my name is Tom Mills, and I just wanted to talk a little bit more specifically about the process that we go through for developing these plans. The information collection process is really a 3-legged stool. One leg of the stool is meeting with the jurisdictions, learning about where their growth is going to be in the future and where we need to either increase our service or reorient our service to serve that new growth. Another leg of the stool is data collection, and that's what I'm trying to show you here on the screen. What you're seeing are 2 maps. The first map on the left, the orange map, is showing you what we were able to do is identify areas where within employment areas, where do the workers in those employment areas live? And where you see this map on the left is showing you where workers who work at Washington Square, where do they live? And that allows us to make that connection between our best opportunity. If we're going to have a bus line serving Washington Square, where should the other end be so that we can make sure we're picking up the most passengers? Likewise, the blue map is showing you of the people who live in Sherwood, where do they work? Again, if we are trying to serve folks in Sherwood, we need to determine where the other end of the trip needs to be. And so this data collection allows us to figure out where to make that improvement. And I like to say, particularly with that blue map, you see those dark colors, it looks like a bus route already. It looks pretty obvious to me. The third leg of the stool is community outreach that Alan was mentioning. And just to give you a better flavor of what we do for community outreach, the three leads, in all of our areas, we've held community meetings, we've had surveys, we've been on board talking to customers on board the lines at the transit centers, we've held focus groups, and we've especially made the extra effort to reach out to communities of people who don't show up to a community meeting. This particularly is in reference to communities with limited English, low-income communities, minority communities, youth, seniors. Some examples, we've held events reaching out to Vietnamese-speaking communities, Spanish-speaking communities. We even held, in Southwest Portland, we held a focus group of Somali women representing the Somali community in the Capitol Hill area and Markham Elementary School area. As Alan mentioned, we are restoring frequent service, and that is part of our service enhancement plans. The frequent service lines are part of, expanding the service. And as Alan mentioned, we hope to complete that this year. I want to mention specifically with West Side, we've been here before talking about the improvements we've made to West Side with line 48, line 47. We are also increasing service on line 57, TV Highway, to restore the frequent service there. Unfortunately, our slides are slightly out of order, so I'm going to jump one ahead here. Just to give you a sense of what we've learned throughout the entire effort, is that what this slide represents is kind of what our system looks like today. There's definitely service into the suburbs, but there is a lot of service that's geared towards getting people from the suburbs into downtown Portland. And maybe at one time that was the dominant trip. However, as the region has grown, so have employment areas throughout the region. And so these service enhancement plans really are focused on having a more holistic system that can kind of get you from anywhere to anywhere, while still acknowledging the importance of that downtown trip. We also want to be able to expand our ability to provide service from one suburb to the next. So going back to my slide that I skipped, we're each now going to talk about our individual areas. I did mention the West Side. We have made some improvements there since that has been completed. And this is showing a quick map of the Southwest area. And to give you a sense of what we refer to when we say Southwest SEP area, we're really talking about Southwest Portland, Tigard, Tualatin, Sherwood, King City, West Lynn, Lake Oswego. What I'd like to say is basically from Shoals Ferry Road swinging all the way down to the Willamette River. And really the dominant request that we were hearing was access to jobs, and particularly access to jobs along the Tualatin-Sherwood Road corridor in the Tualatin industrial area, as well as the 72nd Avenue employment area. And what we found is that there was a lot of need. We have a lot of north-south service, particularly heading towards downtown Portland, but a lot of those workers are coming from the east and the west, and that is where the Service Enhancement Plan will be making recommendations for improved service. Two other improvements that we will be recommending will be frequent service to PCC Sylvania. That is already a very popular trip and probably could sustain frequent service today. And secondly, access to OHSU from Southwest. Today, if you do not travel to OHSU from, or I should say Markham Hill, from or during the peaks, and you do not ride one of the express buses, you have to go into downtown Portland and transfer to a bus to go up to OHSU. So we really want to be able to provide that transit for folks from Southwest without having to go downtown. Now I'm going to go. Oh, yeah.
Did you have a question down there? You wait. Okay.
I'm going to skip ahead and hand this over to Vanessa Vassar, who will talk about both the east side and the southeast service enhancement plan areas.
I'll take that.
Okay.
Maybe it's a question for you, Alan. Do you work with ODOT on this and like say the city of Beaverton, what they're looking at 5-10 years out. For city
Yeah,
aggression.
that's it
All
exactly.
that land use planning and.
Right, we're doing our
Essentially.
best to understand both what the current needs are, but also what the future vision is for growth and change. Understanding, new road connections, what the expectation for growth is, what the desire for change is in each of the communities so that we can build something that will support that over time.
So 3 years from now, they want to build a new road, a new connection out in Bethany. Is that correct?
Right, so we're tracking, well, Tom probably has in his head, new additional connections in Bethany, additional connections in South Hillsborough, other places where, there's real change coming that if we just looked at today's conditions wouldn't tell us enough about what we need to do.
Okay, thank you. I am now going to talk about some of the needs we've heard throughout the East Side Service Enhancement Plan outreach process. We've talked to riders, residents, and employers, and we've heard overwhelmingly the need for more north-south service, either by improving service, existing service on 122nd Avenue or 181st Avenue, or adding new service where it doesn't exist today along 148th Avenue and 162nd Avenue. We've also heard, again, the need to provide better access to jobs, specifically Airport Way in the Columbia Corridor, and within Gresham, the South Shore Corporate Center and the future Gresham Vista site, as well as adding new service to the Troutdale Reynolds Industrial Park. Additionally, we've heard the demand for more service to education centers, specifically Mount Hood Community College, the PCC Southeast Campus, and Reynolds High School. Currently, it's line 25 ends at 181st, so there's been interest in extending that out to Cherry Park to serve Reynolds. And then lastly, as you all are, I'm sure are aware, the Powell Division BRT project is ongoing, and we've heard desire to make sure we are adding bus service improvements that would complement that service and provide better connections along Powell Division. And then I'm just going to briefly give you an update on the Southeast Service Enhancement Plan effort. We're currently doing outreach right now, and at this point we've heard a great demand again for more access to job centers, specifically the Columbia industrial area, the Milwaukee industrial area, and improving service along Sunnyside Road in Happy Valley to meet the growth there. So either by adjusting hours of service to meet shift times, or providing more frequent service, or rerouting service so people don't have to walk in the dark when their shift time ends. And we've also heard the need for more east-west connections throughout Clackamas County. We've heard about either providing connections between Oregon City and Tualatin, as well as providing connections to the new Orange Line and the Green Line. And then lastly, something that's come up quite a bit is providing better service between the South Oregon City neighborhoods and the Oregon City Transit Center and the Clackamas Community College and Oregon City High School. So that's where we are right now, and I'm going to pass it over to Kate to talk about the North Central area.
Maybe as we pass it to Kate to emphasize that, of course, especially in the southeast area with the opening of the Orange Line itself is a tremendous improvement in service, as well as we were able to take those resources freed up to make sure we weren't having duplicative service and improve service on a number of bus lines throughout the southeast area. So this is really kind of building on that positive first big step in September. Sorry, Kate.
Oh, no problem.
You have a question there. Yep. Do you have the inventory of the industrial lands in the metropolitan area? Zoned industrial?
Yeah, we've
Okay.
generally worked with the
Or light commercial.
jurisdictions who do understand
Yeah.
where those are, generally the numbers of jobs. We've talked specifically to employers in each of those areas, and we're continuing to do so.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, good morning. My name is Kate Lyman, and I'll speak briefly about the North Central Service Enhancement Plan area. This area includes the majority of the city of Portland, from I-205 west and from Division north. So it includes all of Northwest and North Portland. It includes downtown. It includes a large portion of Northeast Portland and some of Southeast as well. In this area, we have heard, similar to other areas, about the need for better connections to job centers. And that's both in terms of providing more frequency and hours of service on lines that we do currently have, as well as the need to increase our coverage to job centers in this area. And we've specifically heard about Swan Island, and we've heard about Rivergate and the whole Columbia corridor, as well as the Airport Way industrial area. There are also neighborhoods and residential areas that we have heard about that would like to see improved bus service coverage in this area. One neighborhood in particular is the Cully neighborhood of Northeast Portland, also the East Columbia neighborhood of North Portland, and there is a desire for more service in the Pearl District north of where the streetcar currently goes. And also, in general, we've heard from a lot of people about the need for new services that would improve the grid of transit service in this central part of our region, and would generally improve mobility for a whole lot of different kinds of trips. And those connections include a new connection from Northeast to Southeast Portland along approximately Southeast 20th that would connect to somewhere in Northeast, in the 20s and Northeast. And we've also heard about a desire for a new connection from Northeast to Northwest Portland, potentially across the Fremont Bridge. And we've heard about the desire for a direct connection between St. John's to Northwest Portland. Thank you.
Great, thanks. And then just to wrap this up, so that's our progress so far and what we've been hearing. What you heard was very much an emphasis on what we're hearing, because we're still developing how to turn that into a draft vision that we then go out to partners and share and say, does this match what you think, what you think is really needed? Were we hearing correctly? Let's work this through, and we go through a couple of cycles of that before we try to finalize to meet as many needs as possible in a way that really makes sense for the long term. At the same time, we're also making some down payments on the improvements that are identified. So I just wanted to flag a few things like the frequent service restoration, but also improvements to Cornell Road on the west side and access to PCC and employment on the west side, improvements to the eastern portion of Powell Boulevard, which we heard very early on, almost before we started this process, the need for, and then capacity and reliability improvements on a whole suite of routes throughout the line, emphasis on continuing to look for partners so that people can get to and from our service, because every ride starts with walking or rolling to and from the bus. And then, of course, the Orange Line, which I already mentioned. And so the future of transit, the details are what we're working out. The broad statement is a region that's interconnected by bus and rail service and really meets as many of those anywhere to anywhere trips as possible, not just to any one given destination. Of course, we're making good progress and we're making those down payments. In the long run, it puts pressure on us to make sure that we're as efficient as possible with our current service and that we look for additional resources to be able to deliver the full vision over time. With that, I will pause and see if there are any questions, and then after that, we do have a couple of folks who would like to comment on our process to you.
Director Esmond.
Excuse me. From the outside, this looks exhaustive, what you're doing.
Exhausting, I think they would tell you.
All the above. Can you give me an idea of how many hours of work from staff it take what you've been doing? It seems like you haven't
really off the top of my head, because we don't
fine.
track it quite like that. Tom's been essentially full-time on this for 2 years, and Vanessa is close to that for a year, and Kate is close to that for, I don't know, 9 months, something like that. So in addition to some other help from other TriMet staff.
So about 10,000 hours, would you say?
Big round numbers certainly
Sure.
could be.
I mean, it seems like there's no stone left unturned.
We're doing our best.
I mean,
there's a
really,
lot of stones on the beach.
I'm commending you, and the fact that this agency goes, this is Portland, which is the city of process, but I'm very impressed, so.
On behalf of all of us, thank you.
Yep, all yous, yeah, thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank you guys for all of the hard work, and I really do appreciate how much hard work this takes. I think this is one of the star efforts of this agency, because this is a region, and we do need to figure out how to provide the best service to the entire region, and this is the vehicle we're using to do that. So I thank you very much for that. Your communication effort as you're putting these things together is great. One of the things I'm curious about is, as the plans are completed, so right now only the West Side plan, are we doing regular updates to our partners and the people we heard from in all that effort, so that they know what progress we're making, and, you know, conversely, what progress we're not making and why. I think that's also a very important element. So I don't know if Tom,
feel free to add, but I'd just say in the broad spectrum, because these three are developing relationships with stakeholders throughout these areas, they have a continued role beyond the completion of the plan to keep that connection going. It doesn't need to be full-time after the plan is complete, but it's a long-term commitment to keeping those relationships. Tom, did you want to add?
Yeah, I would just add that we are in the habit of sending out a kind of a quarterly report. It's kind of just really a quick email to our stakeholders, particularly, well, with the West Side, because we've completed that. But I would also add that I'm a regular attendee with the Hillsborough Chamber of Commerce, the West Side Economic Alliance, the West Side Transportation Alliance. So they see my face a lot, and many of them, including Intel and Nike, have my phone number, and they call. So yeah, we're in touch quite a bit.
Great, thank you.
All right, I would say bring your folks up.
Great, thank you very much. With that,
Thank you.
I'd ask Marie Hagenlock from Gerber Gear, Sarah Angel from Swan Island Business Association, and Celine Andreessen from Willamette View Manor, but also a board member of the Workforce Investment Council of Clackamas County.
Good morning, everybody.
Well, good morning. How are you?
Doing fine, thanks.
Well, thank you for having me today. My name is Marie Hagenlock, and I'm a safety and facilities manager for Gerber Legendary Blades. I'm also a sustainability manager, so transportation is deep in my heart, and with Gerber on sustainability programs. I'm here to speak to you today about Gerber and how Gerber could benefit from the improvement transit service listed in the Southwest Service Enhancement Plan. Gerber is located off the 72nd Avenue in Tigard, just south of the Tigard Triangle. The Southwest 72nd Avenue employment corridor has a large number of middle-waged and entry-level jobs that are important to our regional economy. We currently employ 226 permanent workers with a substantial number of temporary workers. Our workers travel throughout the metro area to the work site. Gerber was founded over 75 years ago and is best known for manufacturing knives, multi-tools, and gear. Our customers include military, as well as hunters, outdoor enthusiasts, and industrial businesses. We have several transportation challenges to meet with our workers. Many of our workers, especially our temporary workers, would benefit from the improved bus service along the Southwest 72nd Avenue. Currently, there is a bus line that runs along Southwest 72nd Avenue, but is too infrequent and only runs during the morning and afternoon peaks. This doesn't match up with our day shift start time, which is 6 a.m., or our swing shift end time, which is 11:30 p.m. We have a difficult time in getting workers from our temp agencies based on the time schedules the bus runs. In order to improve and provide better service for our business, I would like to recommend that the Southwest Service Enhancement Plan is put into place because it would do the following items. Provide all-day bus service on the Southwest 72nd Avenue that connects with the Tiger Transit Center and the Tualatin Park and Ride. It would also connect with the West Commuter Rail. Reorientate the bus routes so they could connect with the bus lines on Southwest 72nd and allow for easier transfer to this. Following, Gerber then would be able to enhance this and give incentives to the bus riders with the employees going to our work site. With the increased access from the entire region to our work site and to other work sites with middle-waged and entry-level jobs in the Southwest Avenue employment corridor. These are extremely sustainability issues for all of us on 72nd. Most of us have sustainability programs, and transportation is one of the highlights that we include in our program. For these reasons, I ask you to implement the improvements listed in the Southwest Service Enhancement Plan as soon as you are able to. And again, I want to thank you for allowing me to speak today.
Thanks for coming.
I am Sarah Angel, the director of the Swan Island Business Association and Transportation Management Association. Good morning. First, I'd like to thank the Trimet team for the invitation to speak to the North Central Enhancement Plan, and also you, board, for your time in hearing my testimony here. I would like to just speak to a particular component of the North Central Service Enhancement Plan. The component that includes a potential substantial increase in service for Swan Island, specifically a proposal to combine the line 70 and 85. The latter is an express line that runs between Swan Island and the Rose Quarter currently. This will provide an opportunity for a one-seat ride all the way from Southeast to Swan Island. It will substantially increase the number of connections available for commuters traveling to the Swan Island area. It will increase the hours of service on Swan Island, which is critical in a 24/7 environment. And it will also improve the reliability of service to the bigger shipyards, which, as you may have heard, the largest dry dock is now in place, humming along, and it looks like business will not be slowing down anytime in the near future. So these improvements really will be critical to not only supporting but enabling the growth that we're forecasting for the island and that is currently underway. We have just one road, one access road getting down to the island, and this is a significant issue for many of the businesses down on the island who are really reliant upon freight movement. We are one of the fastest growing employment areas in the city, and so these enhancements would really directly benefit the employers down there, again, by reducing congestion and facilitating freight movement. By reducing the demand for employee parking, we have very little industrial land in the region, and in particular down on Swan Island. This means the less land we need for employee parking, the more land we have for ideally building up, which is what UPS did when they launched their transit subsidy program. It would enable access, provide access to training and employment in family wage jobs down on the island. PCC's Trade Center also is up and running. And I do have a couple of considerations that I wanted to put forward if this is implemented. The first one is ensuring that the line 70 doesn't get hung up on the train on the southern end. This has been an issue that has impacted the reliability of the 70 in its past. The second would be a consideration to look at the routing of the line as it exits Swan Island so that it might pick up the ideally connection to the Prescott station for the Yellow Max line. We have last mile connectivity. The Max line is such an investment and a worthy investment, but it's a challenge for the employees who are, again, shift workers. They need to clock in on time, and it makes it more challenging for them when they can't get to the Max station. And then I would be remiss if I didn't find a way to insinuate the name of my predecessor, Lenny Anderson, who was part engineer behind the 85 in getting it up and running. And I have a sense that he might push back if the name is lost in the merging of the 70 and 85. maybe this is brand recognition, maybe it's pure sentiment, but I've picked up his stead and can say we would love to see the name 85 continue. So thank you again for your time, and we, as always, are grateful for a great partnership with Trimet.
Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Celine Andreessen, and I am a board member for Workforce Investment of Clackamas County, as well as the Human Resource Generalist at Willamette View, a continuing care retirement community up on River Road in Milwaukee. I guess to just start with the larger picture, looking at Clackamas County, one of the things that WICO, as we refer to the board and our organization as, is involved with trying to make sure that we're meeting the needs of businesses in Clackamas County as well as the workers. And we're trying to break down some of the barriers that exist for businesses as well as employees, and one of those is transportation. The geographic area of Clackamas County, as you know, is one of the largest areas in the metro area to serve, and the Trimet services and transit services are some of the smaller amounts of service there. We see a lot of growth happening with both residential and business, and we feel that Trimet would be enhancing the ability of those businesses to grow. It's essential for them to be able to grow and to get those employees to the areas that they need to. So we are looking at the request for expansion of transit services. It's integral to our economic prosperity for future generations. As an employer, Willamette View employs about 320 people, and we are on the 34 line on River Road, and we want to thank you for looking at the expansion of frequent number of stops there. That's going to happen in September. We appreciate that very much. It will help, going from 70 minutes per stop to 35, I believe, 34. So that will be great. We serve a senior population there as well, so we have up to 500 residents. So we have kind of a dual need there. And the orange line, the max stops, the last stop is at Park, which is at the base of a hill about 3/4 of a mile from Willamette View. And for us, we have a lot of workers in healthcare that are working until 11:30 and midnight. If they work a little bit overtime, report gets done, the nursing report and so on. So they're having to walk in the dark to get down to the Park station, 3/4 of a mile, which is a concern that we need to somehow address to be able to get people using the max line there. And also, we have people coming and starting a shift at 6, which means they need to be able to walk up that hill at 5:30, 5:45 in the morning. So it's dark during those times. The 34 stops its run at 7:34 in the evening. So we don't have anything that's close by. We'd love to see that expanded in our area. Even I have many minimum wage and or lower wage employees that get off shift at 7:30 and 7:45 and can't get to the 34 bus line by the time the last run has hit, and many of them are high school students. They're coming from the local high schools, Milwaukee High School, Reynolds, Rex Putnam, areas like that, and so it would be helpful to be able to have that run expanded for the 34 and or connecting somehow with that max station. So that there's not a walk in the dark during early morning and late evening. So I appreciate you allowing me to provide input, and thank you very much.
Oh, thank you all. This is very helpful. Any questions from the board?
Yeah, I'm on a roll.
How many, on Swan Island, how many people travel in and out there every day? Well, I should say the regular shift and the swing shift and then the graveyard.
Oh boy, broken up by shift, that's a good question.
I don't need it right now, I'm just...
Okay, I can provide that. I know that currently the employment is above 11,000, and this is it's a pretty dramatic recovery from the recession when it dropped down, I think below 9, so.
Yeah, okay, that's good. Thank you.
Sure, please.
For Gerber, you talk about your seasonal employees.
Yes.
How long are they seasonal?
From nine.
I'm
six
sorry,
to nine,
I'm sorry, you
6 to
said-
9 months. Yeah, 6 to 9 months.
Is that a seasonal issue for you? Or?
It usually is because of Father's Day, which is coming up, starts our busy time of the season and lasts through December.
And
with
how
the
many do you
hunting.
think that you employ in that capacity?
Anywhere from 50 to 100.
Okay, thank you.
And that hurts our parking spaces that are available.
Okay.
So we're looking, if this continues, we're going to have to do something else besides rent parking spaces from next door neighbors to increase our staff. It seems the hunting and the outdoor enthusiasms are growing with us, and as we bring more manufacturing business back from China and more automotive and more automation into our production atmosphere, we're learning that these people want to come and work because they have also ideas of hunting and fishing and outdoor recreational things that they would like to see, and so that's what we're trying to provide.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I just want to say thank you for coming. This is a good example. All of you, I think, touched on the last mile, which the new board members will understand shortly what that is. It's just how to get from the end of the line or our last bus stop to where people live and work. That's an issue throughout the region, and we're successfully dealing with it in a few areas. But obviously, it's a big demand, and I hear it a lot out there. I also hear a lot about the work hours.
Yes.
More and more about that.
Yes.
And what's really interesting is the other thing is I think people are already now starting to understand the business advantage of having
Yes.
adequate transit, because you don't need to have as many parking places, and you can actually use that land
Right,
for more
exactly.
productive purposes. And so I think that you've touched on a whole lot of things. And please work with us and keep coming back, tell us where we really need to make those investments. We wish we had the resources to do all of it at once, but I think what you're learning is that we're going to try to get the highest priorities addressed as quickly as we can, and then obviously as we raise additional resources, start moving into those other areas. But it's also a partnership, so we look forward if there's any ways to partner with the private businesses, and we've got shuttles and other things in various
Right.
places that
Right.
have worked. So don't just stop. I mean, look at all the options that are there. We'd love to work with you.
Well, and Gerber's willing to provide incentives for everybody who works for us as far as permanent and/or temporary to ride the bus.
Yeah.
So we support you.
Oh, great. Thank you very
Thank
much.
you.
Did I see somebody raising their hand over here?
I just want
Oh,
to
I'm
give
sorry.
a plug. Willamette View also asked that if we could be a part of the opening day celebration, they would like to be able to do that. So
All
just
right.
put that out there.
All right.
I just had another thought from the freight community. We've been hearing that they are increasingly moving their shift times back earlier and earlier in the morning, and this is to address the congestion
Yes.
issues that their drivers are encountering. And so I'm sure that you all are very aware of that, but that presents another opportunity potentially for looking at aligning transit service to industrial districts.
Yes. Yes. Well, again, thanks for coming, and thanks for what you do. We appreciate it.
Thank you.
All right. Ready to move on then? To.
So, Mr. Board President, we do have a couple other
Oh, I'm sorry.
quick reports.
Yes. Oh, yes.
And maybe, if it's okay, we'd invite Harry Supporter up to give you a very quick overview of our pedestrian collision warning demonstration project that we did. You've been provided a more thorough presentation in your document, and obviously you can have a full report available to you, but we wanted to just touch on the findings and the process at a pretty high level here this morning. Thank you.
Good morning, President Warner and other board members. If you recall, this is a demonstration project that was started last year in March and went through October. And this was to demonstrate several different types of technologies to provide warning to pedestrians that a bus was making a turn. It was not to take the place of the operator in doing and exercising their due diligence, but provide more information to a pedestrian that a bus was turning. This is really to address phenomena that we experience in the Portland area as well as nationally, and that is of distracted walking. People are busy looking at their electronics or daydreaming and not always paying attention to their surroundings and, in this particular case, the movement of a bus. This was a $400,000 grant given to us by the FTA, and we had several partners involved. One of which was AEM Corporation. They were the lead investigator, as well as Portland State University, who also provided the statistical analysis for this particular project. There is a final report. That report has been submitted to the FTA, and we hope that it will be issued later this summer. There were several objectives of the project, one of which was to demonstrate the various available warning systems. These were all commercially available systems except for one, and to determine their effectiveness, and most importantly, was it cost effective? And when should these systems be used? And the one system that we did test that was actually a joint project between Trimet and AEM Corporation was to test the effectiveness of a device at a single intersection. So in total, there were 5 different systems that we planned to test. Unfortunately, this 5th system is one that was commercially available, but we could not get it to work properly, although it is in operation at another transit agency on the East Coast. So the first system was one which was activated by the rotation of the steering wheel, and it also had a strobe light. This doesn't work. The strobe lights were really embedded into the marker lights on the side of the bus. So when the bus was making a turn, not only would there be the spoken message, but also the strobe light would be activated. And the technology here was a little bit different than the technology that activated this particular warning system. And again, it was based upon the rotation of the steering wheel. But this one also had a little bit different system in which that we could adjust the volume of the warning based upon time of day. The previous system also had the ability to adjust the volume, but it was based upon measuring the ambient sound level and then providing the warning above that ambient sound level. The third system was one which we used a beeping sound, and it was tied to a directional LED headlights. I'm going to skip ahead just for a moment, and this is an example. This is the headlight, and we actually have these headlights currently available on all of our 3000 series buses and above. And so what it does is it not only radiates forward, but also sweeps to the right, and it is adjustable as to the amount of light that it might project. But the other system that we tested also was a fixed location bus blank out sign. So when a bus was making a turn, it would use the automatic vehicle locating system that's tied to our the whole bus network, and it would activate the sign. You can barely see the sign in the photo. It's just above the pedestrian warning sign, and just above it, and it says bus. So in total, there were 4 different systems tested. So the process that we used was that we tested this on 45 different buses, 5 routes over this 7 to 8 month period, and with one fixed location at 5th and Burnside. We used a variety of methods to get feedback from the effectiveness of the device. It was based upon operator feedback. We conducted not only surveys with the operators and focus groups with the operators, but also with pedestrian groups. And then we also interviewed staff members to see from their perspective, did they believe this was effective as well? So it ranged from from the bus transportation managers to maintenance staff and others in determining the effectiveness of the system. Oops. So what did we find? We found actually several things. One is that we started out with a decibel level of 70 decibels, and we found that we were getting a number of complaints in residential areas. So based upon that information, we started to make adjustments, and we lowered it to about 60 decibels. And part of the problem that we had was that we didn't really know how effective this ambient measuring device really worked. Quite frankly, I don't think it worked quite well, not as well as that we initially were led to believe. And the other challenge was, where do we make these reductions in sound level? Is it only in the residential areas? Is it in the commercial business areas as well? The challenge is that many pedestrians wear earbuds, and they turn the volume up, and so how loud is loud enough? And that still remains to be a challenge. The sensitivity of the warning device itself, the activation, we initiated an initial set, but because what we were also trying to test in addition to the turning movements was the buses pulling into a stop. So what we found was that it was activating in curves, and we were receiving complaints from neighbors that were experiencing this when it wasn't in a turning mode. So we made adjustments based upon that. And one of the factors that is tied to this is a speed sensor. So above a particular threshold, the warning device would not activate, and we initially started out too high. But by the time we realized this was a particular problem, we could not go back and make the adjustment because of the way the devices work. It meant re-burning new electronics into the devices and then reinstalling them. We just simply didn't have the time to go back and do all of that. But that was a lesson learned. And then the warning type was also of interest. What should the spoken message be? Was the beeping noise sufficient? And we learned quite a bit from that experience. And then lastly, what is the best application for this type of device? Remember, what we were trying to do is we were trying to get pedestrians' attention that the bus was about to make a turn. So we believe the technology to be effective. The pedestrians reported much more frequently that they felt it provided adequate warning. The bus operators were less impressed with that effectiveness. But the other issue was the acceptance of the technology itself. Nearly half agreed that there was a benefit to this technology. There were several drawbacks, but nevertheless, they thought it was important enough to perhaps install these in buses. Pedestrians did not find the warning to be intrusive. They found it to be beneficial, but we still saw a mix between what is better, the spoken word, or was it better to have a beeping noise? So this study, I believe, was extremely useful because what happened was that the manufacturers that were involved then started to make changes to their respective technologies. And so the systems that we see today by these manufacturers are not the same systems that we started out with. So there are a number of changes that were made. The other thing that we wanted to change was there needs to be better integration of the technology with GPS, or something called geofencing. Both of the systems actually have that capability, or the three of the systems have that capability, but we did not use it because we were trying to assess also not only does the technology work, but where should it be applied. So that is something that if we were to implement this in the future, that we would incorporate into the technology. And then lastly, operator control. Many of the operators expressed a desire to turn the system on and off. That presents some challenges in that will the system be used appropriately? So that needs to be assessed. And then lastly, I mentioned the speed sensor. We would make changes to the speed sensor and reduce that particular threshold. So was there a cost benefit? And the simple answer is yes, absolutely there was. But there are a number of variables that were involved. But even with, and it's based upon the number of collisions, the number of turns, the cost of the systems, maintenance costs, a variety of factors. But even if there was a low likelihood of collision, even then the system was deemed to be cost effective. So what we need to consider then is, the consideration was, were the audible warning devices to be effective? And they absolutely were. Is it cost effective? The answer is absolutely it was. But this technology continues to evolve. In fact, most recently I attended a conference in which they were also displaying other types of technologies, one known as Eagle Eye, which is an analytic-based technology. It does have its limitations. Then ProTran, which was one of the technologies that we did test, has now distributed a radar-based technology tied to this audible warning device as well. So the technology is emerging. It's really changing rapidly. And that's really the advice, is really not two factors. One is that I believe a technology should be employed, but the timing, I think, is a little premature to do so at this stage. Remember, these technologies are relatively expensive, and to implement this fleet-wide would be would take a large financial undertaking. But with the new emerging technologies, I would recommend waiting to see how those evolve over time, and particularly the ones that we tested as well, because that technology has changed and there are more features that have been added to it. So I'd like to see what additional features will be available in the future. So with that being said, the consideration is to defer any sort of recommendation, specific recommendation, other than I believe we should employ some technology, but defer to sometime in 2016 and then confer a group of bus operators because, and gather their input, because operator acceptance is absolutely critical to the success of this particular program. So with that, if you have questions, I'd be pleased to answer those. And as General Manager McFarland noted, there is more detail in the packets that you received.
Director Bellman.
Is there a possibility that there might be a federal mandate on adopting these systems?
Not at this time, no. I don't believe so. Although the FTA remains very interested in some type of technology, yes.
Director Stovall?
So you were saying that these are all projects that we implemented to see, kind of in a test mode. Are there any agencies across the country that have actually implemented any of these type of safety mechanisms?
There are several. And so, for example, New Jersey Transit, I think they have approximately 2,000 buses. They are equipping every bus with this type of technology. What we did for the first time, which was never done, was to test different technologies side by side. Mm-hmm. No one ever did that. Secondly, people were responding to incidents rather than conducting a formal study to see, is this really effective? And we demonstrated the effectiveness for the first time, and no one else had done that. And so based upon this information, we are now seeing other agencies beginning to adopt it, but still the question is, how do we implement this? And to give you an example, LA recently equipped their new their newer buses with this technology, and it literally sat for over 6 months not knowing, I don't know how to use this system. And this study helped them begin to develop policies around that. And we still need to develop policies around that. And the suggestion is not to use it in residential areas, but rather to use it more in the business, commercial areas, and maybe in residential areas where there is extremely high density, but that we would have to study on a case-by-case basis as well. But the geofencing feature is one that would help us do that, which, again, we did not do as part of this study.
So as part of the ROI, I mean, a component of that is actually the cost estimates.
Yes.
I know this question is going to be broad in its answers, but because we have so many different opportunities to look at potential solutions. But what would be a cost estimate or a range of what Trimet would have to invest to implement these systems, or a system that we think would work for us?
The current technologies range, they cost approximately $3,000 or so, plus or minus a couple of $100 either way.
Per bus?
Per bus. So now multiply that times 636 buses. It's not a small investment. It's a large investment. And I'm not saying that we should not make the investment. I'm saying let's defer the decision, look at the technology is changing so rapidly. I'm exercising caution in moving a particular direction, knowing that something's going to be different in 6 months. At some point, we're going to have to do something, I believe. But I just think this is a point where we're not ready to make a final decision.
Okay.
Question. Yes, Harry, not so much a question, but in terms of planning and training. We see the effectiveness of having these types of warning systems. Now, waiting to get a group together in 2016 and then making a decision later, what's your plans to do, increase, keep aware, the due diligence of drivers during this time to make sure that they are doing all of the proper things to guard the safety of pedestrians, particularly in the high impacted areas?
So I think you've heard in the past that we have a operator recertification program, and we continue to use that program to increase the proficiency of our operators, and we're always emphasizing the pedestrian safety factors. So this is done repeatedly, not only through that messaging, but other messaging throughout the year. So you're absolutely correct. For me, this does not take the place of operators exercising due diligence. That is the primary safeguard.
Director Esmond, you look like you have some question.
Oh, it'll wait.
Okay, all right.
I have a quick follow-up question. I think the majority of the presentation was in regards to pedestrians. But of course, some of the collisions that we have with buses or with vehicles, was there any research done on the effectiveness on a turning bus utilizing that same audible warning and reducing vehicle collisions?
But not this project. There are other technologies that are emerging that do address that. And during this conference that I attended, they were also showing those promising technologies. My prediction is that within 5 to 10 years, you will see those technologies become very viable for commercially available buses.
All right, thank you.
Yeah.
So I think what Harry's suggesting is we, again, let them do some additional research and testing and monitoring of the new technology before we jump right in. But I think what you're saying is systems like these are valuable, viable, and will help save lives.
Absolutely.
Right.
Absolutely.
So I think I'm comfortable with taking the time to do it correctly and find the best option. I mean, is that the way the board is feeling on this?
Yes.
Yeah.
I would, maybe I misunderstood you, Harry, that we're going to start the focus groups next, or the task force next year?
Yes. So I'd like to wait until we know more about the other technologies that are emerging. And then the manufacturers are continuing to make more refinements to the existing systems. And so this is all evolving pretty rapidly. And to make a decision today, I think it would be a little bit premature.
I guess I would like to see a task force, some group start sooner than later.
It's fair.
Just because of, what's the word, optics? Yeah,
okay.
If possible.
Yeah. Well, for the new board members, I think you know we had a rather unfortunate accident a few years ago, and obviously this pointed out the reason why we need to look at these kind of technologies. And so I think what you're saying is we need to move as quickly as we can, but I want to make sure that it's done and we get the best product available. So what I'm hearing is move quickly, but come back to us, and maybe you can give us some updates on a regular basis in terms of where you are, so we can see what's happening in the technologies. And frankly, if you find out the technologies aren't coming, or they're not being brought to market as soon as you thought they would, then let's move forward and get some decisions made more quickly.
Okay.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Harry. I appreciate your work on this one. All right, so we have one more presentation.
One more short presentation. I'd like to call Alan later up to talk about we love jargon, JARC shuttles, Jobs Access Reverse Commute.
Thank you.
Shuttles that we have around the region that have proven to be that can only be, jargon like that can only be invented in Washington, D.C.
It's all my fault.
Watch it. I resemble that remark.
Mr. President, members of the board, JARC, Jobs Access Reverse Commute, really, and with me is Dan Marchand, who's been managing our JARC process. The idea of this actually has come up already in the conversation before. This is one of those kind of first mile, last mile kind of solutions. Really focused, it's a federal program that's focused on getting people to jobs. The title comes from the reverse commute idea that there started to be more jobs in the suburbs that were of relatively entry level. But it's really broader than that, not just reverse commute, but getting people to employment areas. And so it's as a federal process, there was federal funding that came with it. We are essentially a pass-through agency for that federal funding, guided by a regional plan that looks at where the key employment areas are. Then that money is basically competitively available to providers to provide service to key employment areas. And there are several running. We wanted to talk about two just briefly to give you the background. And all of this is as background for Resolution 150525, which is the last in the resolutions that you'll be considering, which is a contract for one of the JARC shuttles. Grove Link and Tualatin Shuttle, both of which I think you've heard about, but worth a mention. This is Forest Grove and a little bit of Cornelius, with the Line 57 TV Highway, which is a frequent service route, which ends in downtown Forest Grove right in the middle there. But then the surrounding neighborhoods, just a little too far for that frequent service to go in a cost-effective manner. What we were able to do with that JARC funding is put together more of a circulator last mile kind of service that makes these connections in the neighborhood, connects to some of the residential areas, but also connects through to some of the larger employers in Forest Grove. Very popular and has been in service since FY14, fiscal year 14. The Tualatin Shuttle is actually, I think, the first of these services that started all the way back in 2001. And now looks like what you see on the map there, circulating around, making connections to the West Station, making connections to our Line 96, and connecting to various parts of the Tualatin industrial area. Both of those are operated by Ride Connection, a nonprofit that provides service for a variety of needs, especially for seniors and people with disabilities in the region, but also for these two JARC shuttles, and coordinates service throughout the region for those kinds of needs, and really is responsible for hundreds of thousands of rides for people who absolutely desperately a contractor, but also a service provider, has stepped up to take on our DBE program as part of their contract, and to the extent that they need to contract items out. This is part of a bigger picture, which is these kinds of shuttles are really necessary in places where, as I mentioned briefly, it doesn't necessarily make sense to have our standard fixed route transit service trying to serve those kind of last connections in relatively dispersed, for example, industrial parks, where the number of rides per hour just wouldn't make sense for the kind of the typical service that we operate. But there's still that need to make that connection, that last mile. And in the service enhancement plans, which you heard from us earlier, there are several places where, in addition to what you see already, where we've identified that this kind of community connector, which is what we're talking about, would really seem to make sense. It's a funding challenge. The JARC funding actually has gone away. What we're spending on this is the remainder from previous years. And the need for long-term these kinds of service is having us look at additional federal sources, potential state, other local sources, as part of the overall piece. It's a relatively small amount of money when you take into consideration the entire system, but still very much a need. And so I just wanted to leave it at that unless there are questions, but this is, again, background for that last resolution in front of you for the JARC service.
Any questions for Alan? Thank you very much. I think we're ready.
Great. Thanks.
I was just going to thank you, Dr. Villa. I was just going to note that as we look at our service and enhancement plans, even at their early state, we probably see roughly 10 to a dozen locations around the region that we think is really very fitting for the kind of service we're talking about. So one of our challenges and one of the tasks we have is to really begin to look for a sustainable funding level and a mechanism for these sorts of services that I think are really important supplements to the main lines transit system that and service that we provide. So this is a growing issue, one that we're really focused on in terms of sort of the future of this program, and not only how do you sustain the current services, but how do you grow them in new areas that really have similar needs. So we just would make that note.
Good summary. Is there anything else you'd like to present to us this morning?
No, thank you.
All right. All right. So before we move on to consent agenda, I'm just checking the condition of the board. Do we need a little break?
Break.
Okay.
Joe, you just come back.
10 minutes?
That was a business
10 minutes? 10 minutes. Okay.
10 minutes.
So come back at 11:25 by that clock. Okay.